How you doing today, sir?
I am doing great as I usually am this time of week, and have had a couple of conversations with business owners about the holy grail of owning a business, which is ultimately having something that they can sell. That happens a lot more often than taking a company public, selling a business to private equity or managers or competitors as part of a roll up happens every day. It's a great thing for a business owner to achieve, but it typically means the biggest tax bill of their life. So today we're going to talk with my longtime friend Brad Etheridge, who works with business transition advisors. We're going to talk about a way that some of those owners may be able to create a buyer for their own company and sell it tax free.
And thank you, Ed and Neil. And
So,
on top of that, can you hear me okay?
yeah, we hear you great.
Okay. And on top of that, one of the things I've noticed with the business owners that have looked to sell, or maybe it's part of their succession plan, is they have a concern for the employees that helped them build the business, number one. And number two, as you had mentioned, they don't want to pay capital gains tax on the sale of the business, understandably so.
Right.
And number three, all the DNA they put in the company, they don't want in somebody else's hands to screw it up. Um, one of the stories I love to tell, and Ed, you and I have been involved in several of these transactions, is one of the other things that really bothers them. Most of these business owners are very independent. They don't play well with others in the
No,
sandbox.
no, that's the reason they're running their own business is because they are like the three of us, unemployable.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't like to take answers from anybody. In fact, BTA, who I'm with now, the only reason I joined BTA is we are an ESOP. So I don't have to report to anybody. I'm one of the owners of the company, and that's a big deal. But when you're selling the company, one of the things that almost every transaction has, it doesn't matter if it's private equity or a competitor or a group of independents buying the business, they don't want the owner or owners walking out the door the day of the transaction because it scares the employees.
Right.
They want these owners to hang around for a while, usually 2 to 3 years
Hmm.
on a workout contract. So imagine, I love telling the story of the owner. Imagine that you're sitting in your office on a Friday morning and you're looking out your glass because they usually put you where everybody can see you.
Right.
And you see one of your key employees who's been with you for the last 10, 15, 20 years walking down the hallway and they're holding a cardboard box and sticking
Right.
out of that box is, their favorite plant and a picture of their family and their pencil cup and the world's greatest dad cup sticking out of that. And all you can do to help these people that just got fired is hold the door open for them because you don't
Yeah.
have any power. All you have is the title and all you have is the history. And that's really hard to think about. And that's really, that's how those workout contracts work. It's terrible.
Hmm.
So once they get a handle on that, thinking about, okay, I'm still there, but I have to follow somebody else's rules. I already got my money, but I have to hang around.
Right.
It's not a pleasant feeling for these
No,
folks.
it really isn't a great way for an independent business owner to cap off their career with that business. Suddenly going from independent and being the man to working for the man, which it's a great deal if you're on the right side of that transaction, or the woman, I should say.
It
But
is, yeah.
you dropped the term that some of our listeners may not be familiar with yet, but will be more familiar with by the end of this episode. The term ESOP. So first off, before you go into detail about ESOP, if you could just give us a 30-second, 60-second recap of what you've done in financial services before going to ESOP, because this perspective is really important.
Thanks. At 35 years of working with clients in the beginning and then eventually with advisors, building tax strategies and telling them, teaching them, training them how to take the complicated and make it simple enough for the client to understand. When the client sits there shaking their head because they don't want to look stupid, that doesn't mean
Right,
that they're getting your message. And
right.
actually, that's where I met Ed. Not the stupid part, but where I met Ed years ago is he's really good at taking the complicated and making it understandable. And that's where he and I first hit it off. So we started a group where advisors would come in, tax attorneys, CPAs, and financial advisors, and show them what to do with their high net worth clients, and do it in terms that they could understand. So I get a phone call one day from BTA and said, "Hey, we'd like you to join us and explain to clients and to advisors how these ESOPs work. And we'd like to pay you a pickup truck load of money, and we'll cover all your travels and expenses, and you can speak to groups or individuals. It's your call." And I said, I've got the only problem I have with it is every company I've worked for, I've owned. And they said, "Oh, by the way, we're an ESOP, so you will have equity."
Hmm.
All right, okay. Well, I'll tell you what, before I make my decision, I need to go talk to my wife. And so that bought me a couple days, and I went to a library with my Big Chief notebook and a headset and my laptop and looked at this really terribly recorded and sounded video presentation on ESOPs for 2 days, 8 hours a day, making notes and figure out how can we make this as short and simple so that advisors and clients. I mean, look, there's a reason why there's only about 5,600 ESOPs in the whole US. It's because everybody makes it so complicated. So, having said that, doesn't count as part of my 90 seconds, Ed.
Okay.
Okay, so here's how an ESOP works. There's only
And
two
and clarify for us, ESOP, employee stock
stock
ownership
ownership
plan.
program. Yep.
Okay.
There's only two companies in the entire US that are for profit, don't have to pay taxes. One is a credit union. Think about it, it kind of makes sense.
Sure.
They don't have to pay state or federal income tax because initially they were built for the blue collar worker, the factory guy.
Hmm.
They give them a little cheaper interest rate, car note, and they pay them a little bit more on their savings. So the Fed said the only way they could compete with Chase Manhattan or any of the other big banks is they have to have some way that they can be competitive. So what made them competitive is they don't have to pay state or federal income tax. The only other for-profit in the US that doesn't pay state or federal income tax is an ESOP. So once the company is deemed an ESOP company, it no longer pays those taxes. So a sell price is determined for the value of the company.
And this is something they're gonna have to do anyway if they want to sell the company. Whoever buys them is going to want to dig deep into their books, do some due diligence,
Yep.
figure out how much free cash flow they're throwing off, what's their EBITDA, and they're going to decide what is that worth to us. So that's a process any business sale goes through.
So this is a fair number, and we'd be very competitive with private equity or a competitor buying the company. In fact, I'll show you. Well, as we go through this, you're going to see there's actually a lot more money. Usually 2.5 to 3 times more than what they would get from private equity, and they still stay with the company, still have control of the board of directors. So they get this money, but where the money comes from is they get some money up front or cash at closing through what's called an ESOP loan, which means the company, not the seller, borrows 2 or 3 times the EBITDA and gives that as cash at closing to the seller.
Okay.
And then the seller has a seller note. And that
Okay.
note
So that's
pays,
for the remainder of the purchase price
yep.
is seller financing.
So let's say the company was valued at 20 million. They would probably get about 3 million at close in cash, and then they'd have a seller note for 17 million that would earn interest from day one.
Okay.
The interest has to be just a little bit less than what the bank's charging because the bank wants the seller to be subordinate.
Okay.
That interest will continue to be paid until the bank note's paid off. And by the way, those are 5-year notes, the
Okay.
bank notes.
Hmm.
If the bank note's at 6, they want the client to take no more than 5. And we're going to explain why that's important. But okay, so now most of our clients pay off their 5-year note in about 3.5 years. So they devote every dollar, including the taxes they no longer have to pay. They still have profit they're making because they're still operating, and they want to quit paying interest on that note. Once that seller note's paid off, then the client starts to get interest and principal until they're made whole on the remaining 17 million.
Okay. So the bank note gets paid off first. We eliminate the higher interest rate first. Once the bank loan is paid off, which can be faster than on schedule, the client's company starts paying the client back.
Yep, and that whole time they're paying them interest and principal. Here's the fun part of this. We want that company to continue to grow and do well. So the CEO or the owner in this case continues to get paid to run the company. So they're not giving up their salary or their employee benefits. As long
Okay.
as they have their hand on the rudder, they're not only going to get interest on their note, they're still going to get their salary, they're still going to get their corporate car.
Okay.
Now, if they sold to private equity, that doesn't happen this way.
No, private equity doesn't care. They're they're in there moving fast and breaking things before the ink is dry on the deal.
That's right. And you have no control as the seller. So imagine if they're making 300,000 a year. So they're getting their 300,000 a year. Now they're getting 5% on 17 million. Go ahead, Ed. They're picking up,
That's going to be 85,000. Wait,
yeah,
5% on 17 million.
10% on 17 million is
Right. No,
1.7.
that's
1.7.
850,000.
Thank you. 850,000 a year in interest right off the get-go, plus their salary. So as an advisor, you've got some money you need to deal with. And by the way, that interest is taxed as ordinary income. So there's no fun
Hmm.
play on that, which means Ed and you
Well, that's
and
where I come in.
that's right, to go back and figure out how to cut back the taxes.
Right.
And
Right.
there's a lot of strategies for that.
Uh-huh.
So the company, the advisor has assets under management. There should be some life insurance sold too to cover off that debt.
Hmm.
And usually at a $20 million sale, there's about 400,000 a target. I help build that, but I don't broker it. I spent my life doing this. We
Hmm.
don't sell insurance. We don't compete with the advisor for AUM. We don't take a piece of the case. We're
Hmm.
paid based on the sale price of the company, which means we're on the same side of the table
Right.
as the seller.
Your interests are aligned with the
100.
seller. The more money they get,
The more
the more
money we
money
make.
you make.
Yeah, and the clients really like that. In fact, we had one say that to us in New York about 12 days ago, right, Ed?
Hmm.
He
Yep.
says, okay, I get it. I get
Yep.
it. You want us to sell the company for more money and because then you get paid more. How do you get paid? I said, we get paid a ton.
Yeah.
How do you compete with your competitors? I said, we charge more than probably 75% of them. Well, you sound proud of that. And I said, I am. What you should be asking me is who puts the most money in my pocket? Because if we're representing the seller, we want to
Right.
we want to develop more money for the company that's going to be paid and paid back with the tax-free exempt status of the company.
Yeah,
And
this is something we talk about on the Lion Share podcast all the time. If you're paying more for tax advice and you're spending less on taxes because of it, your net cost of complying with the tax law, meaning your actual tax bill plus your cost of complying, goes down. So you can frequently make more money by paying more for the right thing.
what ends up in your pocket
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
Yeah. So
So,
what we've got here is a structure where instead of going to an outside party like private equity or somebody who's doing a roll up in your industry, you create an ESOP and the ESOP becomes your buyer, but you are essentially in charge of the buyer. So you're not on opposite sides of the negotiating table, maybe your catty corner to each other. You're negotiating your own sale to essentially your own entity. The entity gets bank financing to start the payoff. You then get paid off on your own seller note. And at the end of that, tell us about what you like to call the second bite of the apple.
well, let's do capital gains first and then the second
Okay.
by example.
Okay.
If you structure it properly, and we do, one of the big things that puts us very much in favor with the Republicans, where that seller has now risked everything, including probably their first mortgage, to find the cash to build the business.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden, at the end of it, the IRS and the state is going to take 35% of the capital gains on the sale of the business. We can defer permanently or eliminate all the capital gains by structuring this in the beginning. So all of a sudden now we don't have the 35% capital gains, and it's a big deal. In some states, it's a lot more like California.
Yeah.
You got a 13% cap gain plus the state tax. In New York, same thing, right? Ed, we
Right.
found
Yeah.
between the federal and the state. So we've eliminated.
You can easily lose a third of your sale proceeds.
Wow.
So we're
Yeah, wow is right, Neil.
Yeah.
Because when you're selling a business, most business owners want to turn their equity in the business into lifetime financial security, essentially turning the business into a pension. And if you're going to lose a third of your sale proceeds to taxes, plus if you've got to pay off any debt or anything like that connected with the merger, you're really, you got to look at that bottom line number. What's my walk away number after taxes, after expenses? By eliminating the tax bill, suddenly that walk away number, no matter how much you're selling the business for, that walk away number goes up by about 20-25%.
And yeah, it's the ultimate succession plan for somebody who has most of their net worth in their business, which is most of them, as you well know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So at the end of the day, that's one way. Here's the other thing. The seller is encouraged to have the business continue to grow. One of the characteristics of an ESOP is there needs to be a trustee in place. And
That
the
right.
trustee,
So the ESOP itself is a trust. When you put money into a defined benefit plan or to a 401k plan, those funds are actually held in trust, a qualified plan trust. The ESOP is a variation on a qualified plan trust.
and it is treated the same way. It is the growth is deferred. The payout once they start taking money out and cashing shares is going to be taxed like a 401k or profit sharing plan is.
Hmm.
So this follows those same rules, but then there's some interesting twists, and we'll go through those. So as the company becomes more profitable, their share values rise. Now, from an owner's perspective, and I'll get back to the trustee in a moment, these are not voting shares. So A guys can't get together or gals get together in the break room and decide they want to get rid of the president. They have no vote.
Okay. Okay. No
These are
pitchforks and
beneficial.
torches.
These are beneficial interest shares, and they go into an account that's a qualified plan. And as the company becomes more profitable, their share values rise. So my favorite story to tell is this little hot sauce company, and you would all know it. It's located in the Inland Empire, just outside of Los Angeles. They have
Hmm.
about 35 employees. There was an elderly Hispanic woman who'd been there since day one, and she ran the loading dock. And her back was kind of hunched over, but she looked tough. And they decided after a year of being an ESOP, they wanted to have an employee meeting now that the employees are owners, talking about how to increase the sales and how to become more profitable. So they brought everybody together outside the loading dock and said, okay, we're looking for ideas. How do we grow sales? And that elderly woman raises her hand and they said, sure, what's your idea? And she said, make the hole at the top of the shaker bottle bigger. So when they put hot sauce out, more of it comes out. They did that and it raised their sales
You, you,
22% the
you
first
know,
year.
22%. Every so often, we're in the presence of genius. I'm talking Newton sitting under the apple tree, genius. Watson, come quickly, genius. Make the hole in the top of the hot sauce bottle bigger and
I know.
increase sales 22%.
Wow.
Now take it back to that company not being an ESOP. She's running the loading dock. All she's doing is creating more work for herself. Why would she ever bring that up? Because now it's going to raise her stock value.
Right.
You
She's
know,
not just an employee on the loading dock, she is an owner. So the ESOP is a great way to take the employees who have gotten you where you are, reward them, and give them even more incentive to keep doing the things that are putting you in this position.
you see less accidents, you see less trucks backing into walls. People are you see, you're not going to see five guys at construction uh, zone leaning on their shovels because you got four people who are stockholders watching over him or her.
Right.
It makes everybody think they all row the boat in the same direction.
Right.
So it creates retention.
No doubt.
Oh, heck yeah, it
I
does.
mean, I
Yeah.
think about the ownership when it's hard to get employees to work hard. I
Yeah.
mean, we're seeing that against the line. If you own part of the business, you're more motivated to see it grow and
Right.
develop and have the right customer service and all those. Can you give examples, Bradley, of organizations like that
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 are ESOPs who became ESOPs after a specific sale? Not giving just examples, not like case ones you can say.
yeah, absolutely. No, and yeah, we never use the specific
Yeah.
unless we had the Ed, what's the name of that big grocery store down in Florida? Publix.
Publix. Yeah.
Publix grocery store is an ESOP. That's a good example, right? Because they're huge. They dominate Florida, the Southeast. Piggly Wiggly. Listen, the reason that Publix became an ESOP is grocery stores in general work on about a 1%,
Right. Pretty
right?
thin
There's not
profit
big
margins.
margins. So all of a sudden, if they didn't have to pay taxes and they could offer better retention, they have meat managers that have been with them for 20 years that have $3.5, $4 million in their retirement account. They have $20 an hour cashiers that have 1.5, 1.6 million in their retirement account.
Yeah.
And go
I
into
know
a
I know
pub.
surgeons and physicians who don't have 3.5 or $4 million in their retirement account.
Exactly. Um, yeah, so there's certain types of companies that it doesn't work for that you can't do.
Hmm.
That's a handful, but like gross, just about every construction is awesome. Um, that, and by the way, Publix is the largest in the US. This just shocked me when I was looking at go to work with BTA. I think it's 5,635 or 6,535 ESOPs in the entire US. And I'm going, why is that number so low?
Right.
I've been in financial services at that point 38 years, and it took me 2 days, 8 hours a day to figure out how they work. I think everybody's making this way too complicated. Now, there's a lot of moving parts to it. Here's the one that started this whole long conversation. Ed's asking me about it. Because the seller agrees to subordinate to the bank and take a slightly smaller haircut on the interest rate, how do they get even with that? And how they get even with it is they get warrants. Now, here's how the warrants. We'll look at the day that the company becomes an ESOP and say, how much would bridge financing cost us if we went out in the open market? And for those of you not familiar with bridge, I think all of you are familiar with bridge lending. But right now, bridge
Yeah.
rates are about 12, 12 and a half unsecured. So they agree to take five. So what's the spread? 7%. So we'll calculate the day of closing and say, here's what you could have collected on that seller note. And we'll multiply it by the number of years it's going to take to pay them off. And we'll come up with a warrant value. So the basis on the warrant value is the day we close, we're going to determine what the company is worth. So here's that example. Let's say the company's worth $20 million at the point of close. We just took a $3 million note out, an ESOP note from the bank. The company did, not the seller. All right, so the seller doesn't
Right.
guarantee.
Seller's not liable.
Right. By the way, banks love ESOP notes because it's the same people running the company and there's less drag on the company because there's no taxes. The default
Right.
rate is near zero. And then we borrowed $17 million in the seller note. So we just took $20 million out of $20 million valued company. How much is that company worth the day we close on the ESOP? Go ahead. There's no wrong.
So we've said we've said 20 million.
Yeah. And we just borrowed 20 million,
Right.
right? So if we're using GAAP accounting, the company's worth zero. We got a $20 million
Oh, the
company.
company. Right. Yes.
Right.
You've got zero net equity after the 20
Well,
million in debt.
the IRS doesn't agree with that. They're going to come in and say, hey, wait a minute. You still have a building, you have employees, you get some future contracts. They're going to tell us how much the company's worth. And it's $20 million company is going to probably be worth about $1 million according to the IRS.
Okay.
So the strike value on these warrants or these shares that have to be redeemed by the company is going to be based on the company worth $1 million.
Okay.
Okay. So now we're going to look ahead to the future. Usually to pay off the entire 20 million to the seller, you're looking at between 8 to 10 years. Now keep
Okay.
in mind they're earning interest along the way, so they're still happy.
Hmm.
But the day they've received their final payment on the 17 million, within 90 days, the company has to redeem those warrants or shares at the then value of the company. So if that seller took the company from $1 million to 40 million,
Right. They're based on 39 million of growth.
and the company has no choice. They have to redeem those warrants within 90 days. And you say, where are they going to come up with that money? Well, they're probably going to have a pretty large stock of cash, and I'll explain why. But if they don't have any debt anymore. They can go borrow it.
Mm.
Right. And they've paid no taxes for 8 to 12 years.
Yeah.
So that's called the second bite of the apple.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure this out, especially for our listeners that are not tax gurus like Ed
Please do.
Lyon.
Please do.
Uh, understanding. So an ESOP is developed off of a sale of business, or that's the only way an ESOP can be created.
The ESOP is created and then the ESOP buys the business. So you're not going to create the ESOP
Uh,
until you're ready to sell.
I see. And this is a way that the net, what about the business after that fact of selling? So
Ah,
let's say you build this business and a construction business, for example, and you
okay.
build it, you want to sell it, you sell it as an ESOP. It's really going to help your employees to stay on and to keep who is really managing that then?
Thank you. Thank you for that question because if I was with the client and they weren't asking those kind of questions, I don't keep talking. Otherwise, their head's doing this, and Ed and I have been through this so many times. These are
Yeah.
leading questions that I want to hear. The the guy or gal who's selling the business is still running the business. That's why they're continuing to get their salary. Now, it doesn't mean they have to be there 80 hours a week.
Right.
If they could get the desired results on their 5-year look forward and they could do it on 20 hours a week, they work 20 hours a week. The employees are not running the company. The board of directors, just like in any other company, appoints the president, the CFO, the CEO. In this case, our selling owner is still going to retain control of the board. So if they want to continue to run the company and they're at market rate for
Hmm.
what they're taking in salary, right? Otherwise, the trustee is going to say, whoa, 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 back up here a minute. The trustee is put into place to have a fiduciary responsibility to act in the best interest of the employee owners. So
Right.
all the employee owners have the trustee to protect against the owner dipping into the cash to buy a Ferrari because that would
Okay.
be a business expense, right?
Yeah. Looting them.
So the
So
relationship is the the CEO, owner, the board of directors, the trustee. And by the way, the trustee is selected by the seller. We'll parade trustees in front of them. We try to find ones that have experience in their form of business. If they don't like the trustee, 6 weeks later they can fire them. But we usually put pretty good trustees in front of them and they get to select the trustee. They
mhm.
don't answer to the trustee. As long as the company is doing what it said it was going to do in its 5-year look forward, they'll never hear from the trustee. And this is really, really important. It's an important thing. So they still have control of the company. My company lost no clients in 2020. We lost no ESOPs during any of the COVID. My
Mhm.
competitors can't say that. We structured these to be semi-bulletproof. Now, we didn't see COVID coming. I'm not trying to be
No, nobody
overly
did.
aggressive, but we structured these to be able to handle the ups and downs of different industries.
Yeah.
As an example, we usually use about 65% of whatever the customer claims they think their next 5 years are going to look like. So we leave a cushion.
Yeah.
And that cushion is managed by their financial planner. That cushion is there to make sure that when some of these shares need to be bought back, which is what we're going to talk about, the company has the cash to do it.
Yep.
So these shares, go ahead, Ed.
No, I was going to say I know that we are on a hard stop for the close, so I want to make sure we're getting close to when we have to stop. But I want you to be able to get your contact information out so that anyone who has questions can reach out to you. What we're talking about here is a way to sell the business. You're creating a special purpose vehicle, an ESOP trust to buy the company. You can continue to operate the company, do even more for your employees, start pulling money out of the company long before you're actually retired, and have a very nice tax-free portfolio to live on for the rest of your life at the end of the transaction. So, Brad, if you want to give us your website, your cell phone, your smoke
Sure.
signals location, whatever it is.
And they can reach out to Ed too, because I know you guys know
Sure.
Ed, Neil, whatever. It's Brad. It's B Etheridge, Etheridge, at bta.us.com.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah. So here's the easier one. My cell phone, you can text me, call me, whatever. My cell phone is area code 616-485-2008. 616-485-2008.
Great. And we'll get that posted with the video when that goes up.
And one more thing, we're looking for cut clients that have a value on their business at least $10 million.
Mhm.
And they have got to have at least 20 employees.
Okay.
Otherwise, the economy of scale just doesn't work. If somebody's close or at 9.6 and they've got 18, we can work with it, but we want to see usually 10 million and 20. So I'll shut up now.
All right.
Okay.
Well, this is
Neil,
so
take us home.
fascinating. We have to have part two, Ed. This
Okay.
is
Yeah.
this is something I never heard of an ESOP till today. And
Mhm.
so this is really intriguing because when I run into these types of companies that are looking to sell, because lots of people are looking to sell,
Mhm.
go to Brad. There you go.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
simple. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks again,
Have a
guys.
nice weekend, everybody.
All right. Make sure you like and subscribe and share the podcast. Give it a 5-star review to the podcast, the Lion Share podcast. Appreciate it, guys. And we'll talk soon. That was the special simulcast, the Neil Hayes Show and the Lion Share podcast.